Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 78 of GC 365. I am Liz, and I am the 4th and 5th grade pastor at the Mill Creek campus.
And I'm Sarah, and I am the preschool and kindergarten pastor here at Mill Creek campus also.
Okay, so I asked Sarah to do this with me because we've been working together for almost a year now, and it wasn't until about a month ago that we realized that we grew up in the same area and graduated from the same high school.
Yep, we both went to Cascade High School, missed each other by a year.
Yeah.
So now you can all guess who's older, although I've been told I have a baby face, so I'm sure everyone will guess I'm younger anyway.
I'm older. Yeah. And so through this, I've gotten to know Sarah even more. And that's what I love about doing these 365s with people. Okay. So we're wrapping up Numbers 28 and reading through Numbers 29. And I have to tell you that when I was first assigned this day, I had no idea what I was going to pull from most of the reading for today.
Yeah. When you told me your day, I felt the same way when I looked through it. I was like, okay.
But what I love about that is it almost forces you to dive in and do a lot of research.
Agreed.
Or, find out what all of the meaning of all of this. So in Numbers 28, we have nothing but instructions for festivals.
Yep.
And Numbers 29 talks about more instructions for festivals. So we're talking about 7 different festivals, and there's that number 7.
Yeah.
That is
Everywhere.
so well known in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that God knew what he was doing when he instructed all of these instructions for the 7 different festivals.
Yeah.
And something else that I found out is that the first 4 festivals were known as spring festivals.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And those are Passover, unleavened bread, the first fruits, and the weeks known as Pentecost. And then in Numbers 29, they are talking about the autumn festivals, the Festival of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, as well as the Tabernacles. So God was setting a standard with all of these instructions of what pleased him.
Yes.
Because he has that want and desire to walk with you and have you draw close to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had a really good quote too.
Oh, yes, I did. I had a really good quote that I found. It said, God communicated through the offerings his desire to walk the daily road of life with his people. When a community recognizes the value of following appointed time with God, it secures deep values in the hearts of his people. So all of these instructions were written because in the Old Testament, they didn't have Jesus.
They wanted it. Yeah, he wanted closeness with them.
Yes. And I'm thankful that we don't have to follow all of those instructions, that we have Jesus.
Yeah, me too.
A few things that I wondered, though. Was it truly a time of celebration and joy, or was it stressful?
Yeah, I wondered the same thing. So right now, my husband and I are doing Beachbody workouts at home. And there's a reason, right? We want to be fit. We want to be healthy. But it is hard work. So fitting in your workout every day, your diet, not eating certain foods. So even though we know like what we want as the end result, it still is hard work. So I wonder the same thing. Obviously, they knew the reason behind doing all these things. I'm sure they wanted it too, but I'm sure it was still hard work to prepare and do everything they needed to.
Yeah, and God set all of these instructions because that was the way that they could be saved.
Right.
Like they didn't have Jesus back then.
Yeah.
Okay, so Luke 23, or Luke 3, 23 through 38.
Yeah.
It is literally a long list of names from Jesus, the son of Joseph, all the way down to Adam, the son of God.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was going to say about
literally
this.
names. Yeah.
But one thing that I did is I counted every single father. And do you know that there's 77 fathers between Jesus all the way down to God?
Okay.
There's
7
that
again.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. I wonder that too. I didn't get much either, but I will say that as I read through this list of names, something that occurred to me is kind of, they had all these festivals and they had to pass it down, right? Their children instill it in their children, and then they passed it down and they passed it down. So reading this list of names, it kind of reminded me like, we as generational, like we pass down everything.
Yeah.
So
Could you imagine if one of those fathers went rogue and didn't pass down?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, God definitely knew what he was doing when he had all of these names and all of these fathers of all of these sons. Okay, so Psalms, this is what really
My favorite.
resonated with me.
Me too.
So we were reading Psalm 62, 1 through 12, and I highlighted two different verses. Verse 1 says, I wait quietly before God, for my victory comes from him. And how true is it in our lives that we have victories and we accomplish things and we give our own self a pat on the back, or we give credit to somebody who has helped us.
Right.
But what we need to realize is that God has given us gifts and talents, and all of the victories in our life need to be given to God.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, I love this passage too. I'll admit, as I read through it, I got a little emotional. Just imagining David, he went through a lot. We know that. And he says, I wait quietly before God. My victory alone comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. And then I think about things we've gone through. And the thing that stands out the most is our third. When I was pregnant with our third, I had complications. I ended up in the hospital. And, we fought hard. I fought hard. At 6 months, my son was born and he didn't survive. And it was the hardest thing we've ever gone through. And I think back to it now, and God placed us here. I mean, we drove 45 minutes to bring my son to the preschool here. It made no sense at all. People here were bringing us food. Someone gave us a book, Heaven is for Real. I don't read, so that's a gift that I don't have. And if it wasn't for that person reading and recommending that book, I felt like God spoke to me through that book. Just giving me the peace that I needed. Like, you didn't get your son here on earth, but you get to be with him forever, in heaven. And so I had so many people through that ask, how did you get through that? And yeah, it's easy sometimes to take the credit, but 100% it was God that got us through that. We would not have gotten through it if it wasn't for being here. We plugged into the church and the support that we got because of God and Jesus and the love that people showed us. So yeah, I love this passage.
Yeah. Another verse that I really like from this is it actually says it twice in verse 2 and verse 6. It says, he alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will never be shaken. So you drove 45 minutes to come to church. Well, when I was living in North Dakota, we got invited in March of 2018 to the grand opening of a new campus. It's actually a Gold Creek campus called The Pursuit in Minot. And we drove 45 minutes, and I was really excited to check out the church because we didn't really have a home church in North Dakota yet. And the second that we walked into the church, my daughter and I were like, this is where we need to be. We immediately got plugged in and started serving. And then 2 months later, I was in Kansas with my mom, and my husband gave me a phone call, and he told me that our daughter had tried to take her life. I have never felt a sadness and a pain like that before. And I couldn't imagine my life without my daughter, but most of all, I just couldn't imagine that she was hurting that bad to where she thought that was the only thing that she could do to get rid of all of that pain. I knew that God needed to be my rock at that time. I laid awake all night praying to God before I had to drive to the airport to fly home to see her. It was really hard too, because at that point in time, Olyviah did not want to talk to me and did not want to talk to my husband for whatever reason. But I remember her asking me, she's like, I want to talk to a pastor from our new church. And at that time, the youth pastor was this guy named Mike, and he went to the hospital every single day and met with Olyviah. He brought her reading materials. He was there for her. What came out of that can only be described as God's glory. From that point on, Olyviah she didn't run from God, which is so common with all of that pain and that hurt, but she actually ran to God. She started serving with the junior high. She got really plugged into to her high school ministry groups. And so when we moved here, I was actually working as the Kids Pursuit director. We had started a satellite campus in the town that I lived in, which was only 3 blocks from my house. And so I knew when we moved here that Gold Creek was going to be our home church.
Yeah.
At that time, when we started, Olyviah started serving. She started serving in junior high as a small group leader, doing photography for the church. And I decided that I was going to be a door greeter at that time. Well, not too much down the road, I received an email asking to interview for the position of the bridge pastor. And it is just so crazy to see that I did not know how we were going to get through that time in that situation. And God used that hard time in our lives that most people would look at and think, I'm never going to get through this.
Right.
But I believe that the only way that we got through that is God and our faith in God. And we are here where we are today because of that.
Same thing for us. That's how we got plugged in too. We plugged into serving. Same thing. I got an email asked to come in, and then I got offered the little kids pastor position. And I think it was all orchestrated by God. And sometimes the things that are the hardest things in our life, like God has something beautiful planned like out of that. And so I'm so grateful that we're where we are now. And then, fast forward 7 years later, I got pregnant again and didn't know what to expect. And I have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. So it so much came out of that, learning to lean on God, learning to trust him, and knowing that, victory, like we said, all victory comes from him. So
yeah, it's so crazy that God can take a situation like yours or mine and use it for so much good.
Absolutely.
You have an amazing testimony that you can share with people, as well as my daughter has a testimony that she's been able to share with people who have felt similar to where she was during that point in her life.
Yeah. And maybe some of you at home are going through something and you don't know how to lean on God or where to plug in. And we have so many groups here and programs. So if there's anything that you're going through and you need help and you need a resource, like please comment right now. We can direct you to the right place for you so that God can help you get through it.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Sara, for joining me today.
Absolutely.
I absolutely loved talking about all of this with you. And thank you all for joining us online, and we will see you next time.
Bye.